It began like any other high-profile debate, cameras rolling, lights blazing, the audience buzzing with anticipation. But within moments, the calm of the stage was shattered. Jasmine Crockett leaned into the microphone with an intensity that immediately captured every eye in the room. Her voice cut through the noise, declaring that the Trump family had been hiding truths too explosive to ignore. And then, with deliberate precision, she turned her words toward Barron Trump. What came next was the kind of moment that makes history in politics. She said that the carefully polished image of the Trump dynasty was nothing more than a mask, and that behind the mask lay secrets powerful enough to shake the very foundation of their legacy. The audience gasped. Barron, who had been composed at the start, suddenly jolted forward, his expression changing from confident to furious in an instant. He slammed his hand on the podium, his voice trembling but loud enough to echo across the hall. He shouted that Crockett was crossing a line, attacking his family, his mother, and his father with reckless cruelty. The clash became electric, the tension so thick that commentators later admitted they had never seen a presidential debate descend into chaos so quickly. Social media exploded within seconds, millions of viewers clipping the confrontation, spreading it worldwide before the moderators even had a chance to intervene. For the audience at home, it was no longer a policy discussion. It was a raw and unfiltered collision of emotion, power, and fury. Barron Trump freaked out live in real time in a way that would become impossible to erase from memory. Jasmine Crockett, calm and relentless, only sharpened her words as the crowd roared and the debate hall turned into the epicenter of a political earthquake that no one saw coming. To understand why this clash carried so much weight, one must look at the storm already surrounding the Trump family. Rumors had been swirling for weeks, fueled by whispers of leaked DNA results and private revelations that were never meant to reach the public eye. The family, long accustomed to shaping their image with precision, suddenly found themselves cornered by questions they had not prepared to answer. At the center of this brewing scandal stood Barron Trump, pulled unwillingly into the spotlight as reporters demanded explanations and opponents circled like hawks, sensing vulnerability. Enter Jasmine Crockett, a congresswoman known for her razor-sharp tone and fearless attacks on political dynasties. Unlike others who hesitated to touch a matter so personal, Crockett saw the bigger picture. For her, this was not simply a story about one family. It was about power, secrecy, and accountability. Her supporters celebrated her courage, saying she dared to say aloud what many suspected in private. Her critics, however, accused her of crossing boundaries, of dragging a teenager into the firestorm. The stage was set in a debate that promised drama even before the first word was spoken. Barron Trump, younger yet determined to project strength, took his place with a mixture of confidence and defiance. Crockett stood opposite him, prepared and unflinching, ready to press where it would hurt the most. The moderators, aware of the tension, tried to frame questions around policy and governance, but the undercurrent of scandal loomed over every sentence. The audience was split. Trump loyalists filled the front rows, waving signs and cheering at every defense of the family name. Opponents packed the back, eager to see the dynasty shaken on live television. The atmosphere was combustible, waiting only for a spark. And when Crockett spoke directly to Barron, that spark became a fire. It was no longer about generic political points. It was about identity, truth, and whether a family that had dominated headlines for nearly a decade could withstand a bombshell aimed straight at its core. The spark became an inferno when Jasmine Crockett leaned closer to the microphone and dropped her bombshell. She declared that the DNA revelations swirling around the Trump family were not fabrications, not rumors, but hard facts that spoke louder than any speech. Her words were sharp and deliberate, accusing the Trumps of building an empire on half-truths and secrecy. The crowd erupted, half gasping, half cheering, as the weight of her statement filled the air. Barron Trump shot back instantly, his voice shaking with rage. He called her a liar, accused her of exploiting private pain for political gain, and demanded that she retract her words. "You are attacking my mother, my father, my family with baseless lies," he thundered. But Crockett was not shaken. She replied calmly, almost icily, that truth is not an attack, it is exposure. She reminded the audience that facts cannot be silenced, and that every American deserves transparency from those who claim power. The moderators tried to regain control, but their voices were drowned out by the storm of words clashing across the stage. Crockett pressed harder, citing the symbolism of DNA, undeniable, scientific, immune to spin. Barron, visibly rattled, raised his voice further, insisting that this was nothing more than a coordinated smear campaign. He accused Crockett of dishonoring the debate, of humiliating his family for spectacle. But Crockett struck again, this time with precision. She reminded the crowd that secrecy has always been the Trump way, that for years Americans had been told half-truths only for evidence to emerge later proving otherwise. She declared that the American people were tired of shadows and demanded answers in the light of day. Her words drew thunderous applause from one side of the room and furious boos from the other. Barron's composure cracked further. He tried to pivot, to change the subject back to policies, but his voice betrayed him. Each sentence sounded defensive, reactive, as if the ground beneath him was slipping away. Crockett, sensing the shift, tightened her grip on the narrative. She reminded the audience that leadership is not about hiding, but about facing truth, even when it burns. By then, the clash was no longer a debate. It was war, fought with words in front of millions, where every phrase landed like a punch, every accusation felt like a strike at the very heart of the Trump legacy. The hall grew restless, every ear straining for the next exchange. Barron Trump, his face flushed with anger, shouted that Crockett was destroying the integrity of the debate. He accused her of being a political opportunist, using lies to score cheap points against his family. The Trump loyalists in the crowd roared in approval, chanting his name, trying to lift him back into control. For a brief second, it seemed like he might regain his footing, but Jasmine Crockett wasn't finished. She let the noise subside and then delivered the line that would echo across headlines. With deliberate force, she declared, "The truth doesn't care about your last name. The DNA doesn't bend for wealth or power, and no dynasty, no matter how loud, can bury what has already been revealed." The room went silent, then erupted like a thunderclap. Gasps, shouts, applause, and outrage collided all at once. The moderators looked stunned, unsure whether to intervene or simply let history unfold. Barron froze, then slammed his hand on the podium again, his voice cracking as he yelled back that she had gone too far, that she was humiliating his family on live television. His words came out fast, broken, more emotional than controlled. The spectacle was undeniable. Millions watching at home could see that Crockett's words had landed with devastating impact. She had struck the one place where defense was weakest, and exposed truth too heavy to dismiss. Barron's fury only magnified it, transforming the debate from a contest of ideas into a raw human drama. Every attempt to shout her down sounded less like strength and more like desperation. Crockett stood firm, unflinching, letting the storm rage around her. She had dropped the bombshell, and the explosion was unstoppable. Commentators later said it was the moment Barron Trump lost control of the stage, the second when the balance of power shifted irreversibly. The camera caught his clenched jaw, his trembling hands, and his final attempt to speak drowned out by the roar of the audience. It was more than just a debate. It was collapse in real time, a dynasty shaken before the eyes of a nation. When the stage lights dimmed and the debate ended, the storm did not fade. Instead, it spilled instantly into the world, beyond the auditorium. News anchors cut into regular programming with breathless urgency, replaying the exchange between Barron Trump and Jasmine Crockett on a loop. Social media ignited in a frenzy of hashtags, memes, and fiery commentary. One side declared Crockett a hero, finally speaking truths that had long been buried. The other side seethed with outrage, insisting that Barron had been ambushed and humiliated on national television. Clips of Barron slamming the podium raced across TikTok and Twitter, while Crockett's piercing line about DNA and dynasties dominated Facebook feeds and late-night monologues. Analysts filled panels with heated arguments, some praising Crockett for her courage, others condemning her for targeting a family's private struggles. The divide mirrored the nation itself, a country split between those who demanded accountability and those who clung fiercely to loyalty. Within hours, Newspapers declared it the defining moment of the debate season. Headlines screamed that Barron Trump had lost his composure, while others hailed Jasmine Crockett as the new face of fearless opposition. The Trump campaign scrambled to regain control of the narrative, releasing statements condemning the debate as a circus and accusing Crockett of exploiting personal matters for political theater. But the statements could not erase the images already seared into public memory. What remained was larger than the individuals on stage. It was a symbol of the times, a clash between legacy and disruption, between the comfort of dynasty and the demand for truth. Crockett's words would be quoted, dissected, and repeated long after the microphones were turned off. Barron's outburst would be remembered as the moment emotion overwhelmed calculation. Together, they created a spectacle that redefined what a political showdown could mean in the age of instant communication. For millions, the debate was not just a contest of candidates. It was a mirror reflecting America's divisions, its hunger for authenticity, and its endless appetite for drama. And in that mirror, the legacy of the Trump family faced a challenge unlike any before. The bombshell had been dropped, the reaction recorded, and the message etched into history. No power, no dynasty, no carefully constructed image is immune to the shock of truth when it bursts into the open.